We're fine.
Mhm.
Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we simplify the college planning process for our families. I am Kristin Clark. I am the CEO of College Planning Untangled, where I help students figure out how to pick a career path and the right education path, whether that be a college major or something else, to get them to that goal. And I'm here with Bobby Hood, who is an SAT, ACT, and all the MCAT, LSAT, all the ats
Right.
tutor out there. Bobby, how are we doing today?
Oh, just great. Yeah. So we've got a fun topic today, which is just like, hey, SAT, ACT, this test prep stuff, it seems like it's hard, but hard things aren't really that hard, right?
Yes, and it's going to be a new series. We're going to talk about all those things that we make out to be very hard that really, when you break it down, it doesn't have to be that hard.
Absolutely.
So, Bobby, let's jump into this topic. I want to know why everybody thinks this is such a hard thing to prepare and plan for the SAT testing and then actually taking the test.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the first thing I hear from pretty much everybody, when they come to enroll a student, they ask about this stuff. So they say, well, my student is just not a good test taker. She's just not a good test taker. He's not a good test taker. Or the student will say that in their first session. I'm just not very good at taking tests, right? And so that's the first thing is people get in their own head about, like, oh, this test is hard. They think the test is hard. It just seems hard, right? And another reason why people think it's hard is that they think that like the SAT is testing all the stuff that you learned in school, right? That it tests all the math and all of the reading and all of the vocabulary and and all the things, right? All the grammar. And as a result, then they think that like this is something that's going to take months and months to do because they're such a bad test taker or whatever. And probably they can't even imagine how they're going to get, better at this stuff, right? They can't imagine how if they didn't get a good score in the first time, like how are they going to suddenly learn all the things they would need to get from this score to that score? They think they would have to learn things, right?
Yes, yes. And Bobby, I got to tell you, just yesterday, I was having a conversation with my, 50-plus-year-old cousin. She had to
Uh,
take a test, and the same thing came up. I'm such a bad test taker. I'm like, so am I. And
right,
you're right. And then it gets stressful,
right,
right? So,
absolutely. And yeah, go ahead.
how do we simplify this?
Okay, so I mean, part of it is just like, there are a lot of things about this that are just like, it really is simpler than it sounds. It really isn't that hard. And that's the first thing I say to all of my students, which is first thing, this thing about being a bad test taker, right? The thing is that the SAT test and all of these tests, the SAT is just a test of how well you take the SAT. That's it. It's not a test of your math knowledge or any of that stuff. It's just a test of do you know the patterns of this test? Once you know the patterns, it is so much simpler, right? And so the test actually tests a very limited number of things, right? You can write on one piece of paper like a checklist of the stuff that the SAT tests, right? And
How do
like
you know
for
that?
instance, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Bobby, not to throw you out, but how do you know that? Like, how do you know what the patterns are?
So this is, I mean, what I say to a lot of students is that like if you took 20 SATs and read through them and sat there and took them and thought about them a lot, you would see all of these patterns. But this is the thing, like they are called standardized tests because they are standardized, which means like a 1400 score today has to mean the same thing as a 1400 score last year and 5 years ago and 10 years ago, which means that they have to be testing the same things so that they're comparable. They can't test brand new stuff or the scores wouldn't be comparable, right? So they test all these same things. The questions repeat, they just change the wording, all of that. And so, like an example of this, of how you can realize that this is simpler than you think is like on the math section, the questions get harder as you go. And so you think there are easy questions and medium questions and hard questions. But that's not really what it is. There are easy questions. The first questions are just one step. That's why they are easy. But then when you get to the medium questions, it's not that the concept is harder. They just take two easy things and smush them together so you have two steps to the problem. And so each of the steps is just as easy as it was. But doing those two things in order makes it a little more chance that you would miss it. And then the hard questions, maybe they are 3 steps or whatever, right? But they're 3 easy or medium things put together, right? And then, yeah, there are a few actual hard questions at the end of the test, but they are only 1 step of a hard thing. So it's just like, hey, do you know logarithms? Here's a question, right? It's just 1 step, but the rest of it is just, hey, this is the same question you had at the beginning of the test, smushed together with another question, right?
You know what? You just literally reduced my stress by telling me that. And I don't even have to take these assessments. Yeah.
Right,
So, I mean,
exactly.
it's huge, right? To understand that.
Absolutely, that's it. And so when you say, okay, on math, like you can prepare piece by piece very quickly because it's like, I'll get through the first math, lesson of all the strategies, and we'll be 2/3 through the session, we'll be 2/3 through the questions on the test. And I will say, do you notice that you have not needed to know any formulas to answer any of the questions we've done so far? It's all just word problems and reading carefully and working piece by piece and all that. And they say, okay, now, yeah, you need to know like 8 formulas, right? You need to know the Pythagorean theorem. And they're like, well, I know that. And I'm like, well, then you need to know the area of a triangle. And they're like, yeah, well, I know that. That's 1/2 base height. Like, okay, I mean, you need to know a few more than that. That's it, right? And once you realize that, then yeah, you can prepare very quickly, piece by piece, right? And just say, okay, I'm going to get better at these pieces of the test. And once you realize, oh, there aren't that many pieces, and once you know the patterns, it's just like, oh, okay, I've seen a question that looks like this before, right? And once you realize that you don't need to learn anything, you just need to recognize the patterns of the test, and that you can improve your score gigantically simply by knowing those patterns, right? The math is enough to get you a score that represents you. And this is what happens so much. And a good way to wrap this up, right? Is like if you have straight A's in school, then you should probably be getting, a certain score range on the SAT or ACT, right? Or if you have a B average in school, there's probably a score range you ought to be scoring, right? And most students, the first time they take the SAT, they get a score that is way, way lower than where they ought to be, right? And so it's not that everyone can magically go to perfect, but that you can absolutely very quickly get to a score that represents you as a student, what you've accomplished, what you've learned, what your grades are. You can get to that very, very quickly. And as I say to so many students, if I show you some strategies that will help you get right, some questions you weren't supposed to get right, right, then that's even better, right? And you can get an even better score, and that can dramatically change, what schools you can get accepted to. That's it. I mean, that's just the first idea is don't fear that it's that hard because it really isn't that hard. You just need to dive in and start doing it. And you'll realize, oh, okay, I actually can do this. And that's what so many of my students say by the end of the first session.
And I think, Bobby, you get in your head, you're so in your head on this.
Yep.
But I love this idea of breaking it down. And then once you recognize that formula that you need, you're like, okay, I know how to do this. And there's just a calming piece to that, right? Where now you're methodically going through the questions and you're not on this race against time. I got to tell you, the time stuff freaks me out. I hate it.
Absolutely. And that is part of the thing too, is that one of the other things is that, oh, the test is so time pressured, right? And the answer to that, and everything is so, you can hear that in this, everything is the opposite of what you think it is, right? Which is the test is time pressured. So you feel like you need to rush, right? To get through all the questions. But weirdly, the answer to that is to slow down and be methodical. And by slowing down, you actually go faster on the test. And that is crazy to say. It sounds like I'm a crazy person to say that. But if you rush, then you come to the wrong answer and it doesn't match any of the answers. And then you sit there staring at it and you're confused and you're trying to fix things. But if you work slowly and methodically, you get right to the answer very quickly. And you say, oh, well, that question actually wasn't that hard. Right. And that's all it's about. And once people realize that, then they can know, hey, I can do this. And it's not as hard as I think. Hard things, a lot of hard things in life are not as hard as you think they are. Right. And that's it. That's what this series is going to be.
All right. Bobby, I appreciate it. And we'll talk next time about another thing that is a hard thing that's not that hard.
I can't wait.
All right. Bye.
Bye.